It is Friday, February 11th. Let's talk PlayStation. All right, everyone, welcome back. It's another week where we have a lot to talk about. We're going over game news, rumors, first-party stuff, beta firmware for PS5 and PS4, Microsoft talking more about exclusivity, so a lot to go over here. But first, as always, that PS Plus reminder. So if you haven't just yet, make sure you grab those games and add them to your library. Now let's start with PS5 beta firmware 3.0 0.5. But really, this is just being dubbed Beta 3.0. At least it's a little bit easy to recognize there. But earlier in the week, PlayStation put this up on the PS blog for PS4 and PS5, a new beta firmware. So this will be in the testing phase for about a little over a month before a wide release. But this one, the invites already went out, and it's not a major update, but I mean, at least we've got some decent changes here and things that were certainly welcomed. So perhaps the most noteworthy thing is that for the voice chats, they're now called parties, and Game Base has been redesigned on PS5 to include a tab for friends, parties, and messages. And you can now set parties to be open or closed both on PS4 and PS5. So this was definitely based on that community feedback where, gosh, that goes back to before PS5 even launched, right, where they changed that. So at least that'll be a little bit more convenient. You can also start a share play session directly from the voice chat card instead of having to start a share screen first before initiating a share play. You can also adjust volume individually on PS4 now, like on PS5. You can also decline multiple friend requests more easily. You can filter your game collection by genre. The main home screen on PS5 now displays a total of 14 games or apps, so it stretches out a bit further. And you can set a game or app to stay on the home screen now, so it doesn't have to move around when you start, when you boot up other things. So you can pin up to 5 games or applications to keep in the home screen, and they'll stay there. And on the flip side of that, there's also, PS Plus, the icon for that is now on the far left side of the home screen, and that stays there. So you can't move it, you can't hide it. It's just, it's stuck there now, and that's part of the beta firmware and probably going to be part of the wide release as well. Now, trophies have seen a lot of visual changes. Bronze, silver, gold, and platinum have these flares and icons that have been added throughout the card system and the trophy list. Looks a lot better, I think. Then there's more screen reader languages. There's mono audio for headphones, check marks for settings that can be toggled on or off so you can easily identify when something is on, and also voice commands are finally here as well. So if you remember, this was from PS4 a long time ago. I believe voice commands were actually there on PS4 launch day, but it's now in the beta phase for PS5 in the US and UK only right now, but it works pretty much the same way. You would call out, "Hey PlayStation," and you can get the console to find a game for you, start a game, control a setting, or control the playback of media like TV or Spotify or something. But that's, for the most part, everything in there. There's a few other, minor little changes that we'll probably just cover when the wide release comes out in a separate video, but otherwise, that's pretty much it. So it's not exactly a bad update per se. It's just that, we're still missing variable refresh rate, which, that's confirmed. We know it's coming. Prior to PS5 coming out, it was confirmed. And recently, we've had some indicators that sort of, implied that this update or that feature would come very soon, like in this, next major update. But for whatever reason, it's not here. Don't know why. Also, 1440p support. That's one where I do need to remind people they never actually promised that one in particular. They did comment in more of a deflective way of like, oh, if it's a a highly requested feature, then we'll look into it. But that's not confirmed, so it's probably not high on the priority list if they're going to get to it at some point. But folders, that'll probably come eventually. Themes, that will also probably show up at some point, but as I've said before about themes, I'm not sure that's going to be high on the priority list when that would be counterintuitive to the console's design philosophy. I mean, look at your PS5 right now. Where is a theme going to go when every single application takes up the entire screen? So themes would either be useless because they'd only show up in settings or the login screen, or it takes over or it overrides all the applications, which I'm sure that's probably how they would go about doing it, but again, it kind of goes in the face of the UI's design philosophy, which I think they probably aren't willing to do anytime soon, at least. Now, moving on to our next news story, PlayStation VR2. It looks like Sony finally updated the PSVR2 product page on PlayStation.com, where it's got a bunch of info about the headset, things that we already know, nothing flashy or interesting there, but towards the bottom of the page, you can now submit an email for PSVR2 announcements, games, release dates, and most notably, when pre-orders will go live. Now, hopefully, this is going to be a much smoother experience than what we saw with PS5 in the first place, where they went out early, retailers were all putting it up at different times, and PlayStation Direct, that was kind of smooth, I guess, but over time we saw it improve where, there's email waves that go out, and now it's a much smoother checkout process. So at least I'm guessing, based on how PS5 went, this should be a lot better, but undoubtedly it's going to be still difficult to secure a PSVR2 unit. It's just that, right now at least, there's some signups on PlayStation.com, which you might as well go ahead and do, just to be 100% sure that, hey, this is when, the headset pre-orders will go live, and that should reflect not only PS Direct, but other retailers as well. Now, while we're talking about PSVR2, good time to go to our next story, which is about the Tobii Group, which is the leader in eye tracking technology. They recently put out a press release discussing how they're in final negotiations with Sony to provide the eye tracking technology for PSVR2. And this is a bit of a weird situation because the post doesn't really say too much beyond the fact that they're in negotiations and that they're the leader in eye tracking technology, which I guess to a degree they are. There's not really much else that comes close to them. They provide software and hardware solutions. They recently put out the Eye Tracker 5, 1.5, 2 years ago or something, which it's supported by a number of titles on PC. It works quite well, but that was the press release, and we don't know if that means it is hardware based or perhaps they're working, and maybe it could be like software solutions, because right now PSVR2, we were hearing that this thing is ramping up manufacturing either soon or it currently is doing that right now, and the wheels are really moving here. So this press release is a bit odd. I'm not sure exactly what they're in negotiations for. Perhaps they've already narrowed down exactly what they're planning on doing and manufacturing is already going, but perhaps they're working out financial details or what have you. I'm not entirely sure, but it was a weird press release, no doubt. Either way, it still bodes well to know that Sony is looking at Tobii and using Tobii technology, Tobii's eye tracking technology for PSVR2, which is a big part of the headset, of course. Gaze tracking, foveated rendering, mix all those things together with a good software stack, and you can get some really incredible results when it comes to games that fully utilize what the headset should be capable of. Now, I just had to mention this, but recently during Nintendo's Direct, we saw the announcement of Klonoa, the Fantasy Reverie series, coming July 8th to Nintendo Switch, and also PS4 and PS5 at some point later. So not July 8th, but this is such an awesome platformer that this would be a new way to actually access playing Klonoa 1 and 2 on modern PlayStation hardware, because actually it's never really been all that accessible if you're not emulating, because Klonoa 1 on PS1, if you try and buy the disc, it's a very rare game that is quite costly, but it is on the PS3 PlayStation Store as a PS1 Classic for $5.99, which great, but it's not a modern PlayStation console that most people have plugged in and they easily boot it up and play that kind of stuff, right? So it's great to have that. Also Klonoa 2, where that game is probably $90 to $100 on average on eBay, so that game's also kind of expensive, but it's nice to have some excellent, probably I guess what would be considered obscure 3D platformers. They don't feel obscure to me, but it's just something. These games are not well known, and they're now coming to PS4 and PS5, so I'm so happy to see that. Also, we did finally get confirmation of the Chrono Cross remaster that showed up during the Direct as well, so we heard about that late last year, where that singer-songwriter was talking about a PlayStation remake, and we weren't sure, where it was going to be or whatnot, right? That's kind of what we were getting at during those discussions, where it might be easy to refer to it as a PlayStation game, but probably going to be multi-platform, and that's exactly what's happening here. So it's on Switch, it's on PS4, coming April 7th. So, and it looks like a pretty good remaster. They're not doing anything too crazy there, but it looks good. Certainly an underrated classic that is easily overshadowed by Chrono Trigger, so something to look forward to in April as well. Now, getting into our next news story, we are officially 1 week away from Horizon Forbidden West launching on PS4 and PS5, and we have some final details to cover up here. Most notably, we saw some footage of Horizon running on a base PS4, and the game still looks absolutely gorgeous. It's kind of amazing just what they're extracting out of a base PS4. And mind you, the game's going to be 1080-30, and we'll see if the performance is really there when it comes to Digital Foundry doing a deep dive on the various settings from PS4, PS4 Pro to PlayStation 5. But still, it's pretty incredible. And yes, if you are playing this on a base PS4 that is quite old and you've never changed the thermal paste on it, yeah, it's going to be loud. It's going to be probably a jet engine, but hey, at least you'll be able to play what is probably going to be a pretty great game. Now, we also saw a lot of the accessibility features for this game as well, so we're still seeing a commitment from PS studios across the board to offer a lot of accessibility options. So things like that would include custom difficulty settings to adjust damage dealt or received. You can completely customize button inputs. There's this co-pilot system, which this sounds pretty cool. You can use a second controller that has mirrored controls to also play the game or assist as backup. You can also use gyro controls. You can adjust dead zones for the analog sticks. You can adjust DualSense features. You can enable auto aim assist. There's climbing assist. There's a lot going on there, but it's nice to see that, again, there's such a commitment from PlayStation Studios to offer these incredible accessibility options that in many ways can be transformative in removing as many barriers as possible, and that's what we want to see. Next up, let's talk about Gran Turismo 7. One thing we recently found out is that many aspects of what you've done in GT Sport will transfer over automatically. So things like your driver rating and your sportsmanship rating, that will carry over and apply to GT7 once the game launches. Created liveries will also transfer over automatically as long as they were made after December 22nd, 2017. And they do have to be, they had to be shared with everybody. And decals are also going to carry over as well, no matter what privacy setting you may have set previously. But seems pretty convenient there for a lot of that stuff to carry over automatically and just keep going about what you were doing or perhaps progress you've made making some of those liveries. Again, that should transfer over no problem. Now, the more interesting piece of Gran Turismo news is the announcement of Sony's AI group and also Polyphony Digital working together to make a breakthrough AI called Gran Turismo Sophie, where this AI, when applied to the games, I guess is setting lap time records that can beat real-world professional drivers through reinforcement learning, through repetition, through utilizing a neural net, and they're getting results where it's making decisions that a human driver otherwise would have never done or attempted or what have you. Sounds impressive. It's something where they want to apply it to future installments in the Gran Turismo series, so it might not necessarily be for Gran Turismo 7 right now, which is a bit ironic considering that the one thing I keep reading is that for GT Sport fans and people wanting this in GT7 is that they want a better AI, and so this news comes out. So it sounds cool. The thing is, or at least what always worries me about a big multi-billion-dollar, especially a tech company, is always guilty of this, where they announce something, they show it off, they bring it to CES, it's really cool experimental technology, but then it's never applied to a consumer product. It's never a feature. It's never something that actually gets outside of Sony's R&D lab. So it just kind of, there's something here that reeks of that, but I hope they do actually utilize it, because that is the one thing that a lot of companies are experimenting with right now is a neural net, on a wide scale, having a lot of repetition for this AI to learn and adapt, and it can fine-tune a certain type of skill that can take it into a situation it's never seen before and still do it really well. And that's, partly what we need in games nowadays, is that AI has been dumb for the last 20-something years, so it sounds cool, but I'm a little iffy on it. Moving on, let's talk about some rumors, and please keep that in mind, rumors. So with that said, the Oops Leak Twitter account, which we talked about very recently with their string of tweets regarding MotorStorm being at Lucid, and remember, they put out information about the Bioshock game, the next Bioshock, which some of that info was corroborated with Kyle Moriarty of Sacred Symbols, not all of it, but just keep in mind it's still a little bit iffy on the reliability of this account in particular. And recently they put out a bunch of tweets regarding Deviation Games project, the one that PlayStation signed on. So Just to basically summarize this, they discussed it, or they referred to it as a world-class FPS, story-driven single-player campaign. The setting is unknown when they replied to somebody, but it'll have multiplayer with an arcade and also competitive modes planned to be supported for years to come. So it sounds like this is going to be one of our live service games, and the first official announcement could be within the next year, release scheduled for 2024. Which, you know, those are all pretty subtle, broad things to describe it as, and based on the talent at the studio, it's not necessarily an unrealistic way to phrase the game. So it's, I don't know, it's one of those rumors where it's like, it's just broad and open enough with the caveat of, oh, information could change, things could change, what I've heard could change. So it's not super noteworthy, but it certainly sounds similar to what we would probably expect out of Deviation, just based on the talent and what Deviation themselves have been saying. Now, another rumor that we have, and this one does circle back a bit to the Oops Leak account, but this one is from Colin Moriarty directly of Sacred Symbols, where in his Discord group for Sacred Symbols, the screenshot's been circulating where he mentions that Resistance and Motorstorm are the only IP from that generation, or from that era, that you will ever see again, referring to the PS3 cycle. So games like Lair, Haze, Folklore. Somebody says, can we please get Socom? And he says, Socom will be back. Now, this is pretty interesting because, so a few things in here. Motorstorm, there we go. We have some corroboration with the Oops Leak account that mentioned Motorstorm. So again, there wasn't, that wasn't completely connected with what that account said and what Colin said regarding the next Bioshock, but now we can at least piece Motorstorm together. This is the first we would hear about Resistance and also Socom as well, which definitely Socom. People keep saying we've had rumors about that. No, we really haven't, or at least how I would define it, which is there's got to be some sort of credible source that we can, fall back on. Not just people willing it into existence based on, say, Guerrilla's second project. All we know about that is that they have a second game going with, multiplayer FPS talent, Simon LaRouche directing. That's all we know. Nothing telling us that it's Socom, people hoping it's Socom. So this will be the first time that we're hearing it. Same with Resistance. And Colin is somebody that can be very reliable. Keep in mind, he was, before going independent, before Kind of Funny, he was at IGN for a long time doing the PlayStation coverage, games, hardware. He knows a lot of people, so it's something where absolutely he knows some things, and that's probably what he's laying down. So I'm actually pleased to hear about this, because this does jive with what we're seeing Sony doing right now, or at least what these are all still rumors, right? Whether it's something that's a little bit less credible, or we haven't heard too much about it, like, say, Sly Cooper coming back, or, the one that we're hearing a lot about, which is Twisted Metal coming back. So Sony does seem to be really exploring their old IP in a big way, where these projects are coming back. And listen, I'm for it. I just want to stress that right now these are rumors. Two separate sources, so we've got this Twitter account, and now Colin chiming in, so it's sounding encouraging so far. I just hope we get a little bit more evidence, or obviously the confirmation of these games existing. Now, moving on to our next news story, as part of a recent interview with the co-founders of Haven Studios, we learned a few things about this upcoming game that Sony signed on. Not too much, nothing crazy revealing, but it does kind of paint a picture of what this game might be, or rather what it might not be. So the way it was described is that this game, or at least what the leaders of Haven are trying to do, is promote inclusion and caring, describing the environments as not just, these are not just games, they're social platforms for many players. And also we're hearing that the PS5 architect Mark Cerny is involved with this game in some way as well, probably just helping, programming, doing whatever. That's kind of what Mark normally does when he's not architecting an entire platform. He's normally behind the scenes, just doing odd jobs here and there. That's what he likes doing most, really. So he's probably doing something like that, more or less, getting this new studio off the ground, which, we're still going to be quite a while until we see what this game is, but at least we have a general idea of what we might not be expecting based on those very small but perhaps crucial details. Still coming to PS5 and PC, and probably 3-4 years at a minimum. So going into our next story, we have definitely the most definitive answer we've had so far when it comes to what's going to happen to Activision Blizzard games on PlayStation after existing agreements, because so far it's been the kind of wording where you can read it a certain way and maybe it means something else. But it looks like this might actually be the Minecraft or Destiny treatment, where these games are going to ship everywhere for the foreseeable future, at least, or at least past the regulatory review. So that's what this all goes back to. So on February 9th on the Microsoft blog, we had Brad Smith, the vice president and chairman of Microsoft, make a blog post about the regulatory process and also open App Store policies. And this is where he says, and I quote here, "To be clear, Microsoft will continue to make Call of Duty and other popular Activision Blizzard titles available on PlayStation through the term of any existing agreement with Activision. And we have committed to Sony that we will also make them available on PlayStation beyond the existing agreement and into the future, so that Sony fans can continue to enjoy the games they love. We are also interested in taking similar steps to support Nintendo's successful platform. We believe this is the right thing for the industry, for gamers, and for our business." Now, that was on Microsoft's blog. The following day, Brad Smith was interviewed on CNBC, where he says, and I quote here, "One of the things that we're being very clear about as we move forward with the regulatory review is that great titles like Call of Duty will continue to be available on the Sony PlayStation. We'd like to bring other popular Activision Blizzard titles to Nintendo devices and ensure that they continue to be available on PlayStation." And he compares this to the Minecraft situation directly, where he says, and I quote, "One of the first acquisitions that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella made was Minecraft back in September 2014, and what we've done with that acquisition is a clear indicator of what we hope to do if we acquire Activision Blizzard." So, in a rather surprising but still very welcomed change of pace, we now have a black and white answer about a Microsoft acquisition. And I mean, it couldn't be more direct, at least right now, where it's like, hey, this is what we did with Minecraft. We want to do the same thing here. Not just Call of Duty, other franchises, which, at that point we would be really splitting hairs if we want to say, oh, you have to list off each IP, like what's still coming to PlayStation, right? So it seems clear that right now they want to treat this in the same way as Minecraft or, say, Destiny with PlayStation, where it's not, nothing's being removed, and games will continue to come out past existing agreements, which is nice to see. But the important thing to really understand about at least this blog post and the interview was that this is Microsoft and Brad Smith detailing their principled approach to open App Store policies and also the regulation process with this particular buyout, where they want to work with regulators rather than work against them. So it seems like that's Microsoft's way right now of sort of, not, because if they're going to be doing more acquisitions, if they're going to be buying up more studios and perhaps other companies that help Microsoft's bottom line. I mean, obviously, antitrust is definitely going to come into play at some point, and Microsoft would rather just work with them than against them. And whenever they make an acquisition, whether they sell products on a competing platform or services, that's still money in their wallet. And it seems like they've come to the decision right now, at least, that that's probably the best path forward to continue their model, which. The thing is, it wouldn't be entirely surprising if say in 5 years, new IPs, those go Xbox, PC exclusive or whatever, right? I mean, obviously, in the short to midterm, it sounds like they're going to honor shipping on PlayStation and Switch, and they're totally fine with that, given the magnitude of Activision Blizzard, all that talent associated with the all those developers, all the IP that they picked up, right? If they're going to be okay with that. And this is sort of also why my gut reaction to the Bethesda acquisition at the time was that, it seems so big, and I'm like, whoa, okay, so probably some things are going to go exclusive, but well-known, titles that are going to easily ship, 10, 15 million, like Starfield, which, yeah, that's new IP, but most notably, like, say, the next Elder Scrolls, which does have some history shipping on PlayStation. It's like, okay, well, that will probably still ship there, like Minecraft, and they can have their cake and eat it too. Because the real thing that people seem to be missing with this piece of news is that, because, again, people are going, oh, why spend $70 billion and do this? You don't spend $12 billion and do that, right? So many people keep saying that, but it is a have your cake and eat it too situation where they get to ship these games on Game Pass day one, and that's their major customer acquisition tool. It's that low barrier of entry, and they still get that. What we will probably see is marketing agreements after that's all dried up with PlayStation. Call of Duty is now going to be advertised as an Xbox PC game, Xbox Game Pass. Subscribe to play the game immediately, but if you choose to play on PlayStation, you'll have to spend your $70 every year, or 60 if they continue to price it that way, but you get what I'm saying, right? So that was my gut reaction to the Bethesda deal. Seems like that's how Microsoft might be approaching this moving forward, with massive buyouts that immediately spark a question of, is this going to at some point turn into a monopoly, or are regulators really going to step in and scrutinize Microsoft, which that is exactly what they're discussing right here, is an open App Store policy and working with regulators than against them. So right now, I'm sure at some point, 5-10 years, we can maybe see some turnover when it comes to new IP coming out of those studios, and they'll be announced as PC, Xbox exclusives. But for right now, this is actually great to see, and probably the best way to approach weird situations where with this consolidation we're seeing massive IP get snagged up, and also massive publishers as well. So for the time being, this is what we've got. Next up, this is a story that I don't think I ever actually thought would happen, or that we would be talking about it, but sure enough, it's news, so here we go. Recently, Tom Holland was doing an interview with GameSpot on the Uncharted movie press junket, and he was asked about what he would do with a blank check for another, video game adaptation, and he said he would do Jak and Daxter. He would like to play a live-action Jak, make it weird, have fun with it, and, that seemed harmless, when that happened, which was 2-3 days ago or something. But then, the following day or 2 days after, or whatever, something different happened here. We had Ruben Fleischer, the director of the Uncharted movie. He was recently interviewed by Digital Trends, and he said this, and I quote here, "I'm actually working on Jak and Daxter, a version of that for PlayStation, which I think would be really cool to bring to life." And that's all it says. So this article is practically useless, nothing else in there. All we have is Ruben Fleischer saying that I guess he's working on it with PlayStation, which is a pretty, big piece of info there. I don't really know what to make of this, outside of my gut reaction being, this would probably be bad. And I mean, I love Jak and Daxter, you all know that, but come on. Whether it's, animated, if it was animated, it would have a better shot. Live action, this has no hope of being good. Let's be brutally honest with ourselves. But the one thing that, a lot of people are bringing up here is that, with, say, Twisted Metal, or, the Uncharted movie, and us having, the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection, perhaps Sony will also want to do another reboot or remake or something alongside whatever this project is, whether it's, adapted to TV and film, TV or film, I should say. So perhaps this is finally info of Jak and Daxter coming back in some way, which I've always said, I've made my peace with this franchise being dead and dormant. Although I've started to come around to the idea that, it wouldn't be unrealistic to see, Sony hand the IP off to somebody to do a proper remake of the first 3 games. And we're talking Insane Trilogy style. Give it to a really good developer and just do a, ground up remake for the 3 platformers, and, repackage that for, $40-$50. And I'm sure that actually might be highly profitable. So perhaps that would be realistic. A full-blown sequel, I'm not entirely sure. I still think that might not work out nearly as well, but the remake would probably have to come first, and that's how it would, that would probably generate enough interest to do a sequel. But I can't believe, this is even something we're talking about. If, Sony's really looking at the Naughty Dog, or if Sony's really looking at the Jak and Daxter IP again to do something with it, I guess that's better news than nothing at all, but we'll see. Anyway, moving on to our next news story. Sony Interactive Entertainment Europe is finally getting a brand new office after 27 years at the same location in the suburbs. They're moving to a new 65,000 square foot office space in the heart of the city in Liverpool. It's going to be one of those large offices with, big collaboration spaces, cafeteria, all the, bells and whistles of a big office space in a major city. And, it's not really a big piece of news, but it does further illustrate the point that PlayStation is expanding and growing, so they're getting new office space. They're hiring across all these developers. There's, 20, 30 positions open at each studio. They're doing more projects, not less. I mean, so again, it's something where a lot of folks don't really seem to get this, but it doesn't mean less of, you know, X, Y, and Z or thing that you care about. They are really expanding in a huge way, and, well, Office Space is one other way to do it and expand. Now, with all that said, it is time for Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway where one of you can win a $10 PSN code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I'll be contacting you very soon via email or Twitter, and if you would like to win a $10 PSN code, it's very easy. Follow the link down below. Supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and now announce the winner next week because I'm trying to help pay for your games. Those are all the stories that I wanted to talk about with you all from this past week. Tuesday, we did another collection update. That was episode 6. Bought a lot of working on the original PlayStation, so a lot of really cool, iconic pickups that are in that recent update. Glad you're all enjoying them. Only do them every month or so, but still got other things coming, and that's it for now. We still got a lot of things coming up, right? This rumored Spartacus service. We got PS VR2. That should be within the next 2-3 months, hopefully. So it's going to get exciting pretty fast. But that's it. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I'll see you all next Friday.